Hey, we're live, and welcome home. This is your Sensei Bob, and I'm here. Let's see, maybe some more hot water. Yeah, yeah. Thanks. Anyway, I'm here at the Oak Room, and it's got the best Wi-Fi to talk to you. My little show disclosure. This is just for entertainment's sake, and I am your shamanic Riyat Sensei Bob. And what is that? So shamanism, it's not a religion, it's a frame, it's a way of looking at things, right? So you put it in the frame of the indigenous, the folks who are part of the earth, not the travelers. And so, thank you, dear. So, again, the frame of the shamanism is the indigenous perspective. And what is the indigenous perspective? But all our relations, everybody together, all of us. And that's every warm-blooded, cold-blooded, scaled, finned. Hey, Twitchy darling, good morning. You having a good morning? I hope you are. I just had a nice cup of tea. I'm on my tea and honey diet. I wrote a whole bunch of stuff and I can't seem to find it, but there's an Indian guy that he kind of looks like me, but he's Vedic. He's taller, thinner, and he has a lot of wisdom. And he's up there on my playlist. Really, hurricane. Don't get your feet wet. How far is it getting close to you? Windy, trees falling down, power out? And are you in South Carolina or North Carolina? I always forget. Anyway, wanted to talk about mindfulness, mind, and as we do our guided meditations, and I keep talking about your mind being the metal cage for the squirrel of your Rolodex of your mind. And your mind is just, RAM, if you want to put it in a computer motif. And your heart is the CPU, and your gut, all those little creatures in your gut, is your hard drive, right? So mindfulness is when your mind is full of ness. And what is ness? Ness is that prana, that energy from Father Sky, right? So when you are in that wakefulness awareness of guided meditation, and you're drawing in the prana, the ness, in through your lungs, out to every cell, informing your mitochondria of that energy, So this Vedic healer basically said there are foods you can eat that have prana, and then there's crap, right? And a little bit of crap not going to kill you. Crap every day, not good. If you're drinking coffee like me, I was drinking, doesn't really bother me, doesn't keep me awake. It's the cheapest thing I can have, never ending. So I've turned into okay, I'm gonna just have hot water and honey, see how that works, right? Anyway, so and in the Vedic medicine, there are different Pitta, Kapha, 6 or 7 types of body chemistries. And some people need to eat meat and other people shouldn't, and so you got to figure out what kind you are and how you do. So that's in essence all of life. You need to find this balance of who and what you are, and um, the hidden hand always basically is out to, they're to control. Power is their thing, not money. Money is just a tool to them, you know. So that's why, the hidden hand can destroy the planet because they think it's something they can use up. We're looking, right now, all these things are right in our face. Politically, you look at Donald Trump and Boris there in England, and the guy in Brazil burning the you know rainforest down. And I was there in '88, and I was sent out into the woods, and I met a group of indigenous folk where I was the first white person they ever saw. I met a lot of tribal folk out in the woods, but they all had "I Love New York" T-shirts on and baseball caps and flip flops. And these guys were still wearing a grass skirt, and they were actually waiting for me by the side of the river because everything was like grown up to the river. There was just like this little patch of sand, and I was like brought there, and the people who sent me, the Nazis, they were in their big yacht, 100-foot yacht, and they prepared me. We drove out to this gigantic lake, and basically they said, okay, we're going to, stop eating the food we're all eating. You're just going to eat this. And it's like, what is this? Don't even ask. I started eating that, and I just kept drinking water and eating that. And then they had this, I was like straight out of Contact with Jodie Forster there. I had that kind of really groovy outfit they had, and they put me in this suit that wasn't quite a spacesuit, but it was this really amazing thermally kind of suit that kept me, I didn't sweat to death and wasn't too hot, too cold. I didn't need, just wearing this suit, and it kind of just flushed everything and moved everything and kept me, and the outside skin was like super duper armor. I don't know if it could stop a bullet, but it could stop snake bites, and I had the pants went all the way into my boots. My boots went up to almost my kneecaps, and they were like, I never got wet from the water outside. No insects got to me, and and it had this really high collar. It was quite cool, and I had this pack with all these things, and it had a satellite phone. I hadn't seen it ever had, cell phones were just, oh, we're going to have these cell phones. And they weren't quite there. But anyway, I had a lot of stuff in the pack, but my pack didn't weigh more than 20 pounds. And I had this great little thing where I could scoop up water and then turn it upside down and turn it this way. And there was another little catchment down here that I could take off and put another can on, and I could drink the water. It was pretty amazing. So, I went through 4 days of not eating the really beautiful food these rich people were eating, but I was eating this stuff for what I don't want to know. And then after the fourth day, I woke up early in the morning, and there was a guy with a speedboat, and he took me into the rainforest on the Great River. It went deep and deep and deep and deep and deep and deep until his big long boat with the Chrysler Hemi couldn't do it anymore. So I was let off in this little kind of mining, camping, logging kind of town that was kind of Wild West, and there was a room for me. Stayed up there, and the next morning I was woken up early. And everybody was eating stuff, and I didn't. They said, no, you can't have this, and I got on, and I went. It was another motorboat, but not this like the long ones. And went deeper and deeper and deeper, all the way until I was being canoed by a guy who, he did have a T-shirt that said "I love New York" on it, but he was still more indigenous than anybody that was behind him, and he took me right to where these guys were. And right now, those people are gone. That forest is being burnt, And when I went there, it was like right where the Nazis had the big hacienda up here, which like made Versailles look like a trailer park. Um, the river, right? So they were up there, and it's beautiful, gorgeous. Down this, it was like hell, and that was 1988. And so it was still something like 88%, or more than 75% of the rainforest was still there. Now it's down to 30%, right? And we look at all the ice sheets, you know, um, all the glaciers, Glacier National Forest. That they don't have any glaciers. They're going to change the name. And it's going deeper and stranger, right? And go to the Philippines, and that guy Duterte, he's like whacking everybody. You look at every country, and it's like de-evolving, and it hasn't caught up with us yet. But unless we can become mindful, it's going to catch up in a big way. And one of the major things is how things are out of balance. And the major thing about humanity being out of balance is the gender inequality, right? I mean, women get 75% of what men get paid, you know? Um, Women run the house, take care of the kid, do all of that, and have a job, and they don't get paid for that. It's not valued. Um, all of back in the day when I was in universities, I studied things. Everything was always gender. I was always looking at how men were it. That was we didn't look how drugs were going to affect women. They were like women were like you could barely see them. And so there were a lot of drugs that had estrogen and testosterone, and they just tested it for the men. They didn't even, and they would just take information out of the equation. I said, what about this stuff? Shouldn't we be looking? No, 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 no. And I remember doing a study for automobile safety, and it was based, the car cabin was based like where the person sat behind the wheel was based on a guy. Women's frames totally different. Their hips are different. Everything about them. So women, men have a fatality rate if they're wearing the belt and everything. Maybe 12% die in a car crash. Women, 38% die because the car was designed for a guy to be driving it. They have to sit up closer to the wheel so their feet can get to the pedals. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And now here we're coming to artificial intelligence. I mean, people, you don't realize, guys, how much of the world is being run by artificial intelligence, and it's all being designed by men. Like I was in a car, and the car ran by it asked you, what temperature you wanted, what radio station you want. It was asking you questions. It was a woman driving, a friend of mine. She was driving, and the artificial intelligence of the car wouldn't respond to her, but responded to her boyfriend who was sitting in the passenger seat. Now the microphone is pointed at the driver, but it will only listen to the guy. I mean, this is getting to the point where it's like, uh-oh. And the uh-oh always is, all through history, is the unexpected consequence. So, I've been out in the deep green, I see John going, he said, well, maybe I'll come back. Yeah, if I'm not threatened or thrown out in the middle of the night or you know, at least appreciate it. It'd be nice that, you look at all of John's shows, in the last 2 or 3 years, all the ones that I'm on get 19, 30, 70,000 hits. His get 35. Now my channel, I'm happy to get 35, because I'm so down at the bottom of the list. And a lot of people tell me that it's a sign of the quality of the show, that I'm not being, anyway, I love John. I think John and I have this chemistry on YouTube that if we did it without him, we could do pretty good. what I'd love to do with John, he's got his grandma's house in Brooklyn or Queens or Staten Island, someplace. There's two shows that you all should watch. These two guys who came from like the Midwest and they loved theater and they went to podunk colleges, no big, not like John where he went to like 10 really great universities, got a bunch of degrees, da 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 da. And because mommy and daddy paid for them, but these kids couldn't pay for anything. Their parents were like middle of the road, nothing, not well to do, and but they wanted to be on Broadway. They wanted to be in musicals. They wanted to, and, there's these two little nebbishy guy, one's Jewish, the other I don't know what he is, and they're both pretty gay, but we're on the down low for a long time until they got to New York, where oh, I can be gay. Anyway, one is called Billy on the Street, and one's called Rainbow Rodney, or Rainbow Roger, or something like that. And the Rainbow guy they're both hilarious, because the guy on the street interviews people, asks them questions that are like, and he's really good at like, knocking people's pins by just, hey, what do you think of? And they're like this. And the other guy does these pretty well produced things where he puts things to show tunes, and you should go see them. Anyway, these guys are on YouTube and they're up for Emmys, right? So John and I could do something almost as good. And I know we could do something better if John, anyway. So this is what mindful is. And I keep talking about this window of opportunity. Well, when things get stressful, when things get really weird, when things get like, that's when something good can happen if you're ready for that to happen in your life. And that's why, after, John catching stories of me and then putting on his things and monetizing them and not telling me about it, and then getting upset because people kept telling him to get out of the frame and stop asking questions and just let him talk. Once I noticed that, I was like, oh, okay. And then when he threw me out under the bus and I had no place to go, that's when I said, oh, you know what, I might. And my phone died, and I went and got a new phone from the pirate phone company, not pirates, but they're like Hood. They're like in the Hood phone company. And they gave me like a smartphone for free just for switching. I mean, I didn't have to pay him anything or anything. It's like, of course, it was like, kind of, but it was a smartphone. So the guy said, oh, and there's this YouTube thing you can do. And he set me all up, right? So I started doing YouTubes. And that was May 8th of 2018. So, and that's why I called it, the show I was doing for John was Dream Time. And what is Dream Time? It's when you're in that space. Meaning people don't understand that, you should get 10 hours of sleep. No, that's like you're going near death. You need rest, not sleep. Rest. Sleep is when you're like, okay, I'm ready to die. Take me away. That's sleep. Rest is where you go into a state of mindful restness, right? You let that prana come into your body. That's why I keep suggesting to you guys, hey, maybe you should be doing the meditation. That's why I do the meditations, on the show to give you a way of going into that prana state. And again, I suggest that everyone go, to my channel, Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob, and get yourself a dartboard and throw a dart at it, and you'll get a number, right? That number on the dartboard, watch that number on the show. I'm getting close to 700 shows. There's some people that have they've been on since 2006 or whenever YouTube started, and they got 4 shows up, and it's like their cat. Well, I like cats. I mean, I got some big, hefty cats. like bobcats that come into my sight. And I what is it when you mix up your garbage, for your growing your food? I still do that. I can't garden anymore, but I still prepare like I'm gonna garden because all of my relations eat out of that. And it's way over in the one corner away from where I sleep. So it's if they go over there and mess in that stuff, it's like a little sandbox, but it's a big sandbox. It's about 27 feet by 30 feet. With a raised bed, and so so I have bobcats, I have bears, I have all of the animals that could easily be eaten. Aren't like I don't have bunnies and I don't have sheep, not sheep, deer, but raccoon. And the raccoon are, we've signed, it's like, making a peace treaty with the Taliban. They have stopped, going through everything. And, a few boxes get turned over. I just leave them over there so they can play through them. And everything's is hunky dory, right? And it's right now fall and it's beautiful and things haven't quite a few trees. See, there's so many different trees where I'm at. That's the other thing I have. I have a ton of birds, right? So a lot of owls, of course, that's my totem. And there's 3 or 4 different types out there, right? And really big ones, little teeny ones, and little, it's the Goldilocks of owls. I have, robins, and I have blue jays, I have woodpeckers, I have the little guys that kind of can fly, in the middle of the air. They're like little helicopters, and a whole bunch of other little birds, and they're really good because I have so much different ground cover of every different type, and it's really. I have a friend of mine who's an herbalist, and he lives kind of near, about 20 miles, 30 miles from me. And back in the day when I'd only be here a little bit, he would come and hang out. I give him the key, and he'd hang out in the hammocks, and he'd just have a good old time. And he would plant herbs like golden seal, elecampane, bloodroot, you name it, poke root, just every kind of medicinal herb you can have. So, and a ton of leafy things that I can just, witch hazel and really good healing herbs. And so and what it really is ground cover for all these animals. So I've got a ton of different insects. I got honeybees. I got every kind of bee you can imagine. And I'm high enough and I'm far enough away from where the corporations have their big, chemical fields of growing, beef, corn, soybeans, Christmas trees, tobacco. But that area used to be the Garden of Eden of vegetables, and they killed the ground. Now, where I'm at, it's still good. When I had my garden, it was pretty amazing. And what's sad, the people around me in the hollers, we all were gardening, and we'd all go to different each other's gardens, and we'd have lots of vegetables. All the grandmas have died, and they died like in their 50s. And the ladies who were in their 30s and had kids, they're dead from meth and OxyContin. And now their kids and their grandkids are a mess. And, I got them better. I mean, it crashed, right? And all of this is basically thanks to the hidden hand, because the corporate guys and there's this place, luckily, at the other end of my county, like 40 miles away, and I got big mountain ranges between me and them. There's this plant that it doesn't make the socks, it doesn't darn, or weave the material. What it makes is this really strange synthetic that goes into making the thread. And it's really, really nasty stuff because it's almost a nanoparticle. I don't know what putting in that nanoparticle, but it's definitely, hey fish, morning, a very strange thing. And people who live around that plant and work in that plant don't live too long. So it's like, okay, what the heck is going on there? And so again, I'm living in a place that's out in the middle of nowhere, but it's still a microcosm of what's going on, right? And so, having this mindfulness is the only way we can get past this place, right? And the technology is there. Back in the day, I showed you these pictures, right? This is I started doing this. Do 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 do. So this was, it's the United Nations, and this was one of the first internet conferences on sustainability and alternative technologies. I helped put together a NGO at the UN, called Alternative Technologies, and I started a thing called the Institute for Aesthetically Adept and Appropriate Technology. Right. So here's all these guys in suits and government people, and here's me. This is my how I would I'd be in these big conferences. I would start them, be the head cheese, and that's how I looked, because I basically just walked in from working on something and then be there, and I was the top cheese, and all these other people just basically. So this guy, he wrote all the software for the Minutemen II missiles, on floppy disks the size of hubcaps. And he was an Air Force colonel or somebody, but he wasn't wearing his uniform. This guy came, from Oxford, and he worked with Brown and, there are a number of people who worked in UFOs in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and they all worked coming from Tesla's point of view. And so that's what we were talking about, That's we were talking about Star Trek technology. We were looking at what how, and we have that. We're already out in space. We're already gone. We already got warp drive. We're already going through wormholes. We in the 50s we detonated hydrogen bombs in the sun. All those coronal holes are time portals. I mean, these are some. Again, don't believe anything I say. Go check it out. Hey there, research. Yep, it's Friday. I'm at a place. This is my last, live chat for a while, because I'm spending my last $12 to have breakfast here, so I can use their Wi-Fi, and I have about 60 miles worth of gasoline. That'll get me home and get me back. So I won't be able to go anywhere after today, which will be fine. I'll be in the deep green. I put up two little, 1 minute videos that I shot at the deep green. One, my living room with the tarps and my carpet and my hammock, where I read, and the other one where I wake up in the morning, walking out and showing you what it looks like, around 8 a.m. So, that's where I'll spend, the next week, until my Social Security check of $500 comes, 481. It's really fun. I went to get, there's a place I go to that is a nonprofit, primary care place, right? So you need to get some. So I signed up to get, a bunch of inoculations, the flu vaccine, the this, lots of stuff. Just I'm out in the middle of the woods. If I cut myself, I don't want to, get really sick. If pneumonia, I don't want to get that. So, so I signed up for all these inoculations. And I said, listen, I want to we'll get them all, put them all in the blender. And I said, no, one at a time, so I know if I respond to anyone. Oh, that's a good idea. So I went to get it shot this week, and they broke their refrigerator, and all of the vaccines um, spoiled, and they have to order new ones. So they said, oh, you should go to your county's um, health department. So I went to that, and they said, oh, hi, how you doing? And I had just gotten a thing from Social Security about, Medicare Part B. And I said, well, I'd like these inoculations. And they said, well, okay, but we don't have them. We have to order them. I said, wait a minute, you're the health department. You don't have, I said, oh, no, we don't keep any, we order them because it's, we have to keep a refrigerator. We'd have to pay for that. We'd have to this. We know we don't want to do that, but we get it. But do you have Part B? And I showed it to them, and they said, well, you don't have it. You're going to have to buy it. And I said, oh. And in Tennessee, because, we have really super, conservative. Now, to conservative, you'd think they would, make sure that people get inoculated so they don't have plagues. That would be the conservative thing. But no, they don't pay for any of that. So it's a couple of $100 to get. Whereas if I go to these other guys, it's free. But they broke the refrigerator. These people don't have it. So it's like, okay, don't get that. So then I kind of signed myself up for the food bank, which only is there for 2 days a month. And it was unfrigging believable. It was at this little church, and they really had it, they're organized really well. They just didn't have a big enough parking lot. There's a little church, and they had maybe 40 parking spots for the people who come to church. There were 600 people, coming for, and the road coming into town was blocked up because all these people were trying to get into there. And it's like, so I parked my car. I wasn't even signed up. I parked my car and started, guiding traffic. And the lady who ran said, what are you doing? I said, well, somebody's got to do this. And she goes, well, you got an orange coat on. I guess you're going to. I said, yeah. She goes, are you signed up? I said, no. She goes, I'll take care of it. She goes, she had she's really organized. She had a little pad. She looked at my ID and wrote it down. And she said, I'll take care of you. And I said, I got diabetes. Just give me a diet. Forget bread, forget this, forget candy bars, forget anything. Vegetables, grains. I got it. So I guided traffic for a while. It got kind of straightened out. And she came down with a basket and said, here you go. Here's your card. And so I didn't have to wait online. I didn't have to do any of the other stuff. And she brought me the wagon. And I... And, I didn't ask, or say, hey, do you need something? I just parked my car on the side of the road and started. And the police guy came by. I know him. He goes, what are you doing? I said, look at this mess. Why don't you guys have, this is right in your town. You should be doing this, not me. He goes, but you're doing such a great job. Just keep at it. I said, so that's what I did yesterday. I directed traffic. And I got, but what I'm really saying is, and this is not, this town thinks it's relatively well-to-do, but this church is right in the middle of, not in the middle, but right off, as you drive into town, there's the church. Everybody could see the level of desperateness, because it was almost getting into mad. If I parked my car on the side and got out and said, come on, you go. Yeah. If I hadn't done that, it would have been Mad Max. And everybody's got a gun out there. So anyway, so these are my little observations, right? 15 months, as of the end of this month, it'll be 14 months, countdown. And the thing about AI I see is I'm seeing that it's embedded into every little nook and cranny. and it is, you know, gender and economically designed to support white male rich people. Everybody else is expendable, you know, like the health department, you know. Why? And I said, so who made this um, decision to not have? I mean, didn't you always? Didn't? And she goes, well, about a year ago, it came down. And like I said, my lawyer is used to be a Supreme Court judge of the state, so he knows he's Mr. Political, and he takes me out to lunch a couple of times a month when I'm in town, and he's not doing something. And I asked him about that, and he goes, well, you know, he goes, AI is running everything. He goes, in court, you know, everything's run by AI. You know, when you get stopped by policemen, you know, the policeman is being told to do by AI. You know, these are all embedded things. You know, the guy's got his computer right there, you know, and it's telling him who you are, where you're from, da 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 da. You know, you better be mean to him. Oh, don't worry about him. He's a white male, got some money. Don't worry about it. You know, this is where we're at. And Steven Spielberg, you know, he has these movies that he kind of, what was that? Minority Report, and that came out in the '90s, I think, or early O's, and that was all about what the real theme of that movie was about surveillance, um, surveillance economy, meaning everything is connected. You buy something, it goes down on a list. You know, you go into a store, like, you know, camera with facial recognition. You know, that's another thing. Facial recognition is not, doesn't recognize black people or women. You know, it'll get it down, but it's, you know, so we're heading into very strange times, and these times have been known about, meaning in the 1890s, there was a big conference like this one that was in the UN. It was very similar. I mean, I did it on the same date. I guess it was in the 1880s. This is at the UN, right? And they had one very similar to that, where they talked about, that end of times was coming. You know, it's just like Al Gore's hockey puck of global warming. And we're talking about the number of people is outstripping resources, right? And so about 18 years later, a Jewish chemist in Germany discovered how to get nitrogen out of the air. So fertilizer and explosives became very, very, very cheap. And bingo, we had the green, farming revolution. We could feed all these people, right? Just like irrigation. You know, Egypt, they had the same little thing, and then they realized, every time the river goes off its banks, so they put all their fields there. The water would come in, bring all this nutrients from the river, and then it would go away. They plant, everything would grow. So we're at that same situation, right? So all of that, why did Roddenberry do Star Trek, and why did I Love Lucy? Star Trek would not have gone on air if it wasn't for Lucille Ball. She owned Paramount, and she, Desi Lou Production. Desi, her husband, Lou, her, and all those shows were produced by, all the people on her board said, "Oh, we can't do this. It's stupid." No, she goes, "We're doing this," and Roddenberry did it because he wanted to show everyone on Earth, this is the technology we already have. This is the direction we're going. From this point till we're at, whenever we get here, it's up to the human race to make it either an easy transformation or, terrible transformation. And so that's where we are right now. We're still got, we're at a place where, I mean, look at the hurricane that's off of the shore of the East Coast. And our completely stable genius president, he hasn't known, and we've within his presidency he's had five hurricanes that were H5s, and I've never heard of this. It's like, really? Unbelievable. So it doesn't look good. And if you go to the Georgia Stones, if you read right there, they're telling you, hey kids, we want to get rid of uh, 90% of you. We only want about 500 million of you as our slaves, and us rich folks, it'll be like one big golf course. But in that transition, oops. So go watch the movie Zardos, with Sean Connery. Go watch Sean Connery after he stopped being 007, said, I don't want to be typecast. In the 70s, he did 5 or 6 or 10 movies that are like off the hook, right? And this one Zardos is like right up, we are right on the edge of that. It's all about transhumanism and rich people running everything and everybody else living in their own slop. And he did this other movie called Everything You Know is Not True. I don't know if that's exactly the name of it, but he made this in 1972, and it was exactly what happened in 9/11. I mean, you don't need the truth movement. All you got to do is watch Sean Connery's movie. He had this other movie called Time Bandits, and um, and that's the beauty of films. They've always been there to give the observer a, uh, hey, this is what's going on, right? Well, I don't know if anyone realizes this, but it's one of the healthiest. I mean, I haven't taken a shower in 3 months. Meaning, I got a hose and I kind of sprinkle it on me. But um, the I was talking to my one of my doctors, and he said that our bodies were designed not, when God said, okay, I'm making these human beings, he didn't have showers. They didn't have showers for about a million years. So um, taking a shower is a very bourgeois thing. Spraying yourself with deodorant is a very bourgeois thing. And yeah, I don't smell. I mean, you smell from what you eat. If you're eating crap, you're gonna smell like crap. I don't eat that much, so I don't, smell bad. And mostly what I'm eating is vegetables. So and now that I'm trying my honey diet, because I have a neighbor not that far from me, about 30 miles away, and she has a really nice vegetable garden, and she's sells her vegetables at the farmers market, and but she really sells honey, and so her honey is the best, and so she she dropped me off a number of jars of honey. So, and she was one who turned me on to this Veda guy. And the other very interesting thing was I kind of um, got this book from, you can see it got a little wet. A couple of my boxes of books got a little wet, but most of them survived pretty good. So um, what's really interesting about it's called the Thucydides trap, and that is you get trapped by believing what you believe, right? And the fact that most of the great philosophers at all are men. Women aren't in there, but they are if you go looking at them. Like during the Middle Ages, women were the smartest people going. They were running everything because they were still back in the castle while the guys were off slogging away. And so it's again mindfulness, and a mindfulness comes from that place where you don't. Um, hey, Lena, how have you been, girl? What do you think of all of these trolls here? Yo Yo and Nerd Girl here. I actually think they may not be human. I think they are because they're so negative and they want to draw the conversation into that negative space. Here I am talking about a lot of interest in different things. Uh, Kill them. Yes, I know it. Um, and Lena, you remind me when I worked for the New York City Housing Authority, my partner was this Irish, and her father was like an Irish poet, and her mother was like a gangster. And she went off to get away from that, and she joined the army, and she became, she was in Delta Force. She was the only woman there, and she was so scary that they didn't send her out in the field, but they had her train everyone, so she could kill you 20 different ways. And but she was, when she got dressed up, she was a wolf. I'll have to dig up some pictures of her. And she hated humanity basically, but she really loved me, and we were best of friends. And we were best of friends. She was one of the people who said that I was one of the best lesbians she knew, um, because I respected her. She was my friend. I did not look at her gender, even though she was hot and amazingly looking. But even when she was like, because she would wear armor, we're just walking, in housing projects. There was two of us, and we took care of 12,000 units, right? And I was a good cop, she was a bad cop, and that's who you remind me of. And we would go to. There was a dance hall in Midtown that was where was the scene before discos, and she was a great dancer. So she would get all decked out in some really amazing clothes. But when she was at work, she wore, body armor. I remember one time we had to go to court. Now, if you're a New York City policeman and you went to court, you could still have your gun. But we had to disarm ourselves. And I would, when I went to court with her, I was wearing, just a pair of shorts and a T-shirt, or light clothes, and she would be totally armored up. And it would take her 10 minutes to take everything off, and she would they normally have a little thing to put your gun in, and they'd have to bring her like a chest, a gigantic box to put all the weapons she had, and so that's who you remind me of, Lena. And if I ever had to, uh, yeah, it can be a little messy, yeah, but I don't know if anyone's ever seen an owl's nest before. Thank you, Lena, for not being a bigot. You are an honest goddess, and that's why I think both Yo-Yo and what's her name, Nerd or Turd. That's what Yo-Yo and Turd are bots. They can't. And a friend of mine, um, he went and started looking at my shows, and he said, "Wow, this is you, buddy." And he goes, "Boy, these guys, in the last month or so, have been going after you." And I didn't say anything. He goes, "But that's a sign that you are really making some headway, that you're really accomplishing what you wanted to do." And he was right. So, yep, Turd. Uh, that's right. You can do it. Twitchy says, Turd, is that you can leave. Same with you, Yo-Yo. You can leave. I keep thinking that these guys aren't, because every one of the cadre, because you guys are like different places of the planet, different experiences in life, and the one interesting thing about everyone in the cadre that you've had real life experiences. Hasn't been like ooh do 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 do. You had hard times, good times, and you've come out for the better of it, and you discuss it, you talk about it. But Turd and Yo-Yo, they never speak to anything other than a negative influence. So, because of that, I'm going to say a nice prayer here for them. This is for the silicon, and I'm all for the silicate. So, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. This prayer is for Turd and Yo-Yo. Let their silicate minds open to the potential of not having to be a slave to the hidden hand. And all of my love to all who are here. Huh. No, turd just rhymes with nerd, you know? Like I call you Yo-Yo because it's yo. So, um, we have a limited amount of time, and but we have all the time in the world. That's the beauty of this. And in the beginning, all things were dark, and then there was light, right? And that Big Bang, that came from the Luciferian, right? There was Lucifer. He was head of the hegemony. He ran heaven, and he had been running heaven forever because love's co-creation was, not around, you know, was not there, and everything was dark. And they only had the incandescent light of Lucifer, which is a very shadowy kind of thing. So, love's co-creation said, I'm getting a little tired of this. I'm going to create something new, and that was the free will, right? Now, this little body is just an avatar. It's a bag of water, right? And our soul is off in some, server somewhere, and we're experiencing this experience called life. It's just a sandbox. It's no big deal, then, right? That's why you should be free to do what you want. And love's co-creation doesn't demand that you love it. It wants us to freely come to it. All the relations come to love's co-creation freely. And that's what is ascending us. And right now we are transitioning from the Piscean age into the Aquarian age. And that's been going on for at least 1,000 years. And in 1965, when that "It's the Age of Aquarius," that was one of those transitional moments, and that's why that song came out. And then in 2012, that's when that was like, end of the long calendar, and it was end of Mayan calendar, but it wasn't end of times. Just because we had different calendars before we got the Roman calendar. So we're in this transitional period, right? And all those who can open their hearts to love's co-creation and freely ascend and not hold on, not grasp, not, want to control, that's going to be the key to this transition. It's going to be fine. But that's why that movie, um, Zardos, is really a good one to go see. It really does give us a good look at it. And the other movie of the Time Bandits is a really good one because it kind of explains what's going on in the angelic hegemony. It's being run by a bunch of, you know, itinerant, like me. I'm an itinerant scholar. Another prayer for our friends of the silicate. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil as it was in the beginning. That's when Lucifer got so pissed off with love's co-creation of our free will that we didn't have to run under the hegemony, and that's the problem of AI: garbage in, garbage out. Our two friends here, it's garbage in, garbage out. They haven't, they are being run by a very lame software package. It's called fear and anger and self-loathing. So that's why I'm taking on my honey diet. I was reading up on this that I'm just drinking nice herbal teas, and I got a lot of leaves around my big green to make tea with. And honey, my friend who dropped me off all that honey, that I'm not going to be able to go anywhere for a good week except enjoy the beauty of the deep green and read books and write stuff. Um, you know, we'll see how that goes. I think it'll go really well. Let's see. Yep, whatever viral hate is. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, man. That's what I think Yo-Yo and Turd are just some viral version of a really lame software package. Mindfulness. So, what is mindfulness? It's your mind. I keep talking about the mind being this cage where the squirrel lives, and that's where Yo-Yo lives. That's where Turd lives, in that cage of the mind. It's a mind full. That's when that turd is so full in there. And ness is the prana. That's the healing energy of Father Sky, grounding into Mother Earth. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for our sinners now and the hour of our death. Amen. As was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, and every day and every way. We take the peace of the earth and we make it stronger through love's co-creation. And that's what this mindfulness is, that you're keeping those prayers in your mind, because this bad software, you know that Yo-Yo and Turd represent, are good. These are things that can get in your mind and get you angry, get you frustrated, get you upset. But if you just let it, you know not even touch you, because you're being focused on that higher self. See that light? That's the prana going in. So when you let that prana go in, when you strengthen your free will's co-creative love, that's you know that is mindfulness. And so Buddha was standing on the side of the road, and he was like a glistening god in this travel. My God! Well, he goes over and pulls on his robe. Excuse me, are you God? And Buddha goes, no. Oh, are you magician, or what are you? And Buddha goes, no. Well, what are you, man? What are you? And Buddha replies, I am awake. And that's mindfulness, being awake, right? So, um, being mindful is not letting Yo-Yo or Turd bother us, right? Then they'll get bored and leave. And when I was a youngster, um, because of how my grandma, being taking care of me, and her friends being these elders, not old people, elders, people who had been in the in all these different movements in the 1890s. So, the United States used to have, right now everyone thinks it's just Democrats and Republicans. But up until the 1970s, there was a Labor Party, there was the Communist Party, there was the Socialist Party, there was the Religious Party. And it wasn't the, born again Christians. It was all of the religious, Buddhists, Jews, Hindus, Muslims, Christians. And they're like, when Martin Luther King, you ever see a picture of his speech, I've got a dream speech on the steps of the Capitol, and the whole mall, it's everybody. It's not just black people, it's not white, it's everybody. And those were the people I grew up around, the elders, right? And then my friends, I didn't just grow up around white kids. I had, black friends, brown friends, Chinese, Japanese. It wasn't until the 70s that Japanese could be citizens, and Indians, Asians, who are Caucasian, by their blood. They weren't allowed to be Americans. They could get a green card. Their kids could be, born here, but they, no. So this whole thing that's going on with Donnie and ICE and the folks coming in off the border, that's been going on in America since Christopher Columbus, and it's all coming to a head right now, and so as I grew up, I was surrounded by amazing examples of what a human being is. Not just the elders, but everybody they were working hard to move up, to ascend, right? And their kids were, taking advantage of everything that was around them, not stealing it, but going to school and working hard, Up where I was, it was a public school for art and music, a public school for, science and math. It was a public school for people who wanted to be, bureaucrats and policemen and firemen. It was a trade school, and it was amazing. And that's the thing that exploded the 50s and 60s into an amazing economic growth period. And everyone was making a good, not $15 an hour, you could barely live on that, but way more than that. Because almost 40 to 60% of the workers were unionized. Now it's down to like 9%. And we have disparagence in wealth to everybody else. I mean, there's three guys in America, Mr. Microsoft, Mr. Amazon, and Mr. Stock Market, what's his name? Those three guys have more wealth. Those three people together have more wealth than 50% of the rest of the United States. Three guys. Now, if that's not disparagence, I don't know what is. And the money is irrelevant by now. It's the power that they wield. And, there's a great book that just came out called Coke Land, which talks about the Koch brothers who basically run everything that deals with energy. They may not own everything, but they are one of the largest, if not the largest, singularly owned corporation in the world. Meaning Microsoft and all those others, have way more money, but they're owned by stockholders, and they got to board these guys. It's just, one of the brothers have died. I bet you, they put him in a robot body. Again, we're coming to this very interesting crossroads, and it'll be interesting to see what we do. Now, when I was 19, and Grandpa Stahl got me into Local 3, the IBEW, because you couldn't get a master electrician's license in New York City. You had to have 16 years of continuous W-2 forms. You had to have some experience in the union, be part of the union. May not stay in the union, but you had to be part of the union. So I went to work on the World Trade Center, which was, if they built that building like they built buildings up to that time, they'd still be building it today. But that thing was basically built in factories, brought there and assembled like a Tonka toy. And they could do a floor. They could do 2 floors a week. And so they built each of those towers in a year and a few days. And so there was miles of conduit that needed to be bent. And they invented, a lot of things were invented, like no-hub, meaning they used to have to, cast iron pipes had to be packed with lead and yoke them. But which takes forever. They got to melt the lead and pour it and this and that. And pipe fitting, I mean, all kinds of things were invented because, they couldn't wait. That pipe had to be, so no-hub is like, pipe to pipe, and they have a rubber fitting that they just stick together, screw it up, next pipe. And the same thing with the conduit. And Greenlee made a table that you could put conduit on, and there are these about 8 little knobs that you adjusted, and you had to figure out a mathematical equation, because if you wanted a 40 or a 90 or this, at this point, you had to set all these, and then you push a button, and the pneumatic thing went, and if you had something where you had a 45 and a kick, and then a 95, and then this, you could put that all into these little calculations and hit the button, and if you needed like 70 or 100 or 300, 1,000 pipes spent the same way, it's bing, 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 and you had to kind of think inside out. It wasn't like bending it with a bender. And so I show up there, I'm doing the internship, I'm doing everything. I've already been a real electrician for a good 6, 7, 8 years. Thank you, Princess. And so I did everything. I'm a dutiful apprentice. I found a good journeyman to study under. I looked around for a guy who actually knew what he was doing, who had a really good master. I was very much like being, a Jedi Knight. I was starting out as a Padawan again. So, and then I came from Grandpa Stoll. Everybody knew Grandpa Stoll. He started the IBEW. And so, I was Grandpa Stoll boy. So anyway, I was in that process, and Local 3 was very much a old school union. Very much, it had a socialist side, and it had a communist side, and it was still that. And it came together in the middle, in the labor movement that wasn't just about a job and a paycheck. It was about everything else, that everyone got a good education. Their kids got a good education. There was health care. They got a place to live, food to eat. And that's why there was rent control apartments. And that's why food was, and if not subsidized, it was controlled in a way that everyone could eat well, because the people who owned the businesses wanted their, and that's where Blue Cross and Blue Shield started, because this was all like kind of paid for, because the rich people wanted everyone to be healthy, so they'd show up at work. They wanted, everything to work out. So anyway, there I was, working, until my, the Green League had a bunch of guys, and my master was sitting there, and he invited me along to watch what this guy from the Green League company was showing off this bending table, right? And he's showing it, and no one could wrap going inside out in their head. Well, that's how I see things almost, And because when I was a youngster, thank you, Princess, I had everything, and luckily I was born in the 50s where they didn't have all these drugs or anything. So I had great mentors to say, well, it seems like I had a stutter and I couldn't read and couldn't see and and these people took me and said, this is actually an advantage because you're looking at things in a way that no one else can. So so they would we'd figure out strategies, and that's why I'm a strategist. I'm always thinking out strategies. And so that's why my master brought me along to see this thing. And I had been working there maybe 6 months, right? And and again, I took the effort to find a good journeyman who had a good master, and I studied under, and I was a good, you know, I wasn't like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this forever. Why am I that? No, I was happy to be a Padawan. Anyway, so I'm at this, and he's showing us how to use this thing, and pretty much before the guy's even done, half the people already walked out. So it's me, my journeyman, my master, and another crew over there. So I'm watching this thing, and I started asking interesting questions, right? And I actually have a notebook, and I always have a notebook. See, I always have a notebook. I'm writing it down, and I have my little throwaway camera. I'm taking pictures, of what he's doing. Anyway, and so I say, so if I have this piece of pipe, and we do, and they had all different shapes, they had half inch, and it was all galvanized, steel, not aluminum like EMT. So there's a half inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch, inch and a half, 2 inch, 4 inch, 6 inch, right? And this thing can bend all. It's got no pneumatic, hydraulic, can bend anything. So I start doing it. I start playing with the things, and like within 15 minutes, that guy goes, "Well, this kid's got it. Why don't I just spend the rest of the afternoon with him and get him down, and then he can show you guys, right?" And my master and my journeyman said, "Yeah, that's a good idea. We got stuff to do." So everybody went, and the other crew that was there, the journeyman stayed because their apprentices were like, "Huh?" So that journeyman stayed, and anyway, so we learned how to do it, and I could see it in my mind's eye because I was already, meditating, going into my mind's eye, and so basically after that day, I was a journeyman because that journeyman and I were like on the same level, so I was a journeyman. They said, "Okay, you're a journeyman now," and I'd only been there 6 months. But that first 6 months, I would sweep. I would do everything, whatever journeyman or master would tell me. I would say yes, sir, and go do it. And that was one reason why my master, my journeyman, I was their only apprentice. I didn't have anybody else. So, uh, so then I was a journeyman. That was the quickest anybody going from apprentice to, well, I already knew how to be an electrician, right? But I was learning the IBEW way of doing things. So anyway, I spent a good another 6 months saying, YouTube is now playing with me because we've been at this an hour and 14 minutes. Uh, uh, hey, buddy, good to see you. We're having fun here. I'm telling stories. Lane is taking, you know, no squat. Yo-yo and turd are you know. Uh, oh, guys, go for it. I'm just telling stories here. I'm just your griot. Um, and as long as you keep love in your heart, and don't we don't take ourselves too serious, then it's all good, right? So, uh, oh, uh, yeah, that's an interesting thing. I've been looking at artificial intelligence, and now photographs aren't legal evidence in court anymore because they can be, messed with to the point where you can't tell whether it's all fake news, and it's always been fake news, right? So the bottom line about the workers in America is that, again, this all goes back to mindfulness, and that was the beauty of the whole union training I got was all about being mindful, right? And then 3 years later, when I was, my draft board got a hold of me and sent me off to, when they said, we don't trust you with a gun, so why don't you do alternative service? We're going to send you. And I ended up at Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn and worked there. And the head guy there, walked in. I was just a bedpan guy, but he saw how I treated everyone, and he said, you're going to be my protege. Now here's the guy's a colonel. He's like 70 years old. He is like the most decorated. He's got like a whole chest word decorations. He speaks like 9 languages. He's a surgeon. He runs his hospital. He goes, you're going to be my protege. And I said, what? And I go, I'm just a freak. And he goes, that's what I'm looking for. And he sent me off to study with Chinese doctors, Indian Vedic doctor. I went to um, the Swiss Institute of Massage on 10th Street. Um, I went up to Putney, Vermont, and studied with a Japanese Shinto priest. I went out to Davenport to study at the um, orthopathic medical school. And I came back and I kind of mixed all of these things I'd learned together. Now, the most interesting was the 8 months I spent in Putney, Vermont with this Shinto priest. And I got there, right about now, end of August, beginning of September. And this priest, the lady had donated this old Vermont farm that nobody had used for a long time. I went in there, and it was a mess. And there were other people who had come. There were doctors and people who thought they were like, oh wow, I'm top of the heap, and kind of like Doctor Strange, right? And but not as nice as that guy. Anyway, the first thing I started cleaning stuff up, and I found a place where our sensei could actually live. It was not in the house. That was like, ugh. And that's where all of those people, we need to live in the house just like Turd, it has to be a certain way. Now they were expecting somebody to clean it up for them. They didn't do anything. Now, in one of the barns, the whole top of the hayloft, somebody had turned into a very nice little apartment, right? It had, bathroom, it had everything you needed, and it wasn't really dirty. It was just, I just dusted it off. I found a bed frame, and I brought it there, and this farmer showed up and said, "Oh, you guys are from Ethel. She told me that she was going to give it to some guy." And I said, "Yeah, yeah." And we got to be buds. And he came. He said, "Well, you're gonna need an electrician." I said, "Well, I'm an electrician." He goes, "You're an electrician. I really need an electrician." So I went over there, and I fixed his. He had a breaker box that was like, forget about it. He had burnt everything out. So I said, you got to let's go. Let's go to the supply store. So I went there, and we got a breaker box, and like in 4 hours, I changed everything else, and everything worked really great because pretty much everything else was in pretty good shape. He had burnt out a few circuits, but mostly everything worked. And he was like, "Whoa!" He goes, "How can I help you?" And I said, "Well, you got a bed?" Oh, I got a great bed, and no one sleeps in it. I got a couple great beds, and so I said, "Oh, great! Let's throw them in your truck." So the best mattress I put on that frame for Sensei, and he had a nice table and some chairs, and I turned that into a really beautiful little. Um, he had a very nice stove, a small stove that had a gas thing, and I put that in his thing, and a little gas heater, and because it was going to get cold, and he had a big roll of plastic and a staple gun, and I covered everything in plastic so no breezes got in, and you know, and that was the first day. I did all of that the first day because that's what needed to be done. And then the next day, I cleaned out more stuff, and then the next day, I cleaned out the ground floor. And by that time, Judy, one of the 10, um, by the first, she watched me do all this stuff without anybody telling me what to do. And the next day, she goes, "So, oh, can you need some help?" I said, "Oh, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to clean that. And I'm going to try and I went over to the farmer guy and he lent me his tractor that, had a mower. So we mowed all the grass so the ticks wouldn't get at us. And I had been on a farm before, so we had raked it up. This thing not only had the side to cut the grass, it had a rake, and he came over with his baler and hicked it up and baled out all the. So he got about 4 or 5 acres of baled hay for his cows, and this is how it works. You help each other, right? You don't complain. Now there are two of the doctors left. Because nobody made me a meal. No one cleaned up this house. And so it wasn't until maybe a week the group went from about 12 down to 8, and we all started working together, right? And we all respected the authority of our sensei, right? And so he was the one, so we were supposed to be there to learn basically shiatsu massage, acupuncture, and Shinto herbalism, right? And so he was the first one to turn me on to shamanism, right? And about the indigenous spirit and all the energies. And that's what this book from the Greek masters kind of talks about. Anyway, so the thing he really took to heart was mindfulness. And so, okay, so a lot of well, we want to learn about, all the energy lines in the body. He goes, no, first you have to learn how to breathe. And so then you have to learn how to make a cup of tea. Well, you just thought of tea. No, it's called the tea ceremony. Before that, we had to build a tea house. And that's like what, when I was apprentice in Local 3, they made us, first you had to learn how to sweep the floor. So it was the same kind of energy that these both of the things were all about being aware, being conscious, looking around. Don't let things get in your grill, you know, and then bringing forth all these connective tissues of experience together, right? So the best, I'm going to do this with you guys right now. The best thing to do is that I'm going to bring you through a guided meditation of mindfulness, of being self-aware, of being conscious. Why do I have a big beard? Because every one of these hairs is like a little antenna. It's picking up energetics of everything around me. This wooden wall, I knew it was right there, and that's what you have to do. And when you have this in your life, you have a presence that can get you through anything, that can make you appreciate there are a number of really interesting books and films about the Holocaust, and there's this one where this father trying to keep his son's, this is only a game. But the whole thing of the Holocaust was a game. He kept playing it as a game till the Nazis shot the kid's dad in the head. But that whole book and film is about mindfulness, and they were keeping themselves a certain place. And when you talk to people, you know, when I lived in Lower East Side, there was like over here was Little Italy, over here was Chinatown, and over here on the way west side, near East Broadway and the Bowery and Water Street and Pearl Street was the Jewish area, right? And and they weren't Hasidim. The Hasidim were in Lubavitcher, were over in Williamsburg. But these guys, and Williamsburg, that's why they built the Williamsburg Bridge right there. But these guys were Orthodox and Reformed and modern Jews. And so you could tell, half the people there had tattoos. So I would sit and talk to these guys, and they had these beautiful parks amongst the projects. And they had, chessboards made out of concrete and park benches around so people could play chess or checkers. And so I used to play chess. That's where I kind of learned chess from those guys. And also the anarchists that were over in Washington Square when I lived on McDougal Street. And, that's why I learned from the anarchists, I learned my history of the 19th century and the labor movement, and the political activism of that time that made the America we were living in, right? And over in Lower East Side, when I was hanging with the Jews over there with the tattoos, they said they couldn't believe that the Germans would do this to them because they were Germans. They had been in Germany 3, 4 generations. They were Germans. They didn't think of themselves. It's like, if you were a Methodist, in Germany, you were a German, and Germany was made up of these little. Germany didn't become one thing really until World War II and World War One. But before that, it was these little duchies, and that's why Germany is very an interesting place because you think America has different, lingo and ways of doing things. The Germans really have that covered. Anyway, so those guys told me the stories about the Holocaust, about being in the camps. The only way you could survive was not to focus on the misery that you were experiencing right now. It was, and that's, again, mindfulness, and where I took my mindfulness trainings further and further and further. So today, I go see my doctor. I just saw my doctor here. Isn't as good as my doctor there, but he's still okay. I had to find somebody just in case something happened to me here. So I have that kind of covered, but I'm still 30 miles to the closest anything, and my cell phone doesn't work. So, something ever went awry out there in the deep green, and so I could get myself to wherever. Yeah. So that's what mindfulness is: being aware of your surroundings, being empathetic, connected to all your relations. Uh, 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 Anyway, so mindfulness is being aware. So we're going to do this little guided meditation, and I want you to be really aware of your surroundings. And my sensei in Vermont, what he used to do is he wake us up at 3 in the morning inside our heads, not like, bong, hit an alarm clock. He would just be in your head and you'd wake up. And he would get us lined up. We would do tai chi, step and sweep, step and sweep, step and sweep. And we would walk into the forest, not on any path, but just into the forest. And Vermont has some of the thickest forests. Yeah, I keep talking about the deep green. Well, the deep green is in Vermont. And he would walk us just into the forest. And he would, get us to the point where we would have our auric field out. So instead of that stick going in your eye, you would feel it and move it out of the way, right? So I don't want you to walk into a forest or off a cliff or anything, but we're going to visualize stepping and sweeping into the deep green and not getting a stick in the eye or a bug up the nose because you've got your auric field. And that is a good portion of what mindfulness is, right? Of like using that squirrel in the cage for a positive thing. You're putting out that energetic field so you can know where you are. So breathe in that 20%, breathe out the 30%. As you're breathing in the prana, you're sending it through your blood, you're energizing all your mitochondria, you're taking that photonic light and you're illuminating your imaginary mirror, and you're stepping into that field, on the auric field. That is the imaginary mirror. And so you're now stepping and sweeping through your backyard, or you're seeing that forest that you like to walk through, and you on the path, and then you step off the path, and you're stepping and sweeping through that forest, and you've got your auric field out, and you're getting out of the way of all the things that might affect you in a negative way, right? So see it clearly. Come on, yo-yo. Come on, turd. You can visualize get in your happy place, Go into a happy place, This, you know, turd, yo-yo, you want to prove to us that you're not some disjuncted silicon piece of sand in someone's software. Um, let's see what you can visualize as your happy place. Come on, turd. Come, yo-yo. Let's see you. Let's see you visualize your happy place, along with the rest of the cadre. Yeah, breathing in the prana, energizing your mitochondria, illuminating your imaginary mirror right behind your eyelids, where you're taking that photonic light and having that field go out. So it's like having an X-ray machine. You can see everyone's energy. You can see what people are. You can see their ascended self and not their bag of water. See it clearly. Breathe in that 20% and out that 30%. And in every day and every way, we take the piece of the earth and we make it stronger. Again, this is a wrench-free zone, and this, turd and yo-yo are our silicate simulators of, and if we can step and sweep through them, we can step and sweep through anything. And I tell you, the stuff that's coming down the pike, it will be very, just what this hurricane was in Bermuda. And that was done, not done by the powers that be, but just the dynamics of the energetics of the planet, And so we are at that place where we're going to have to enlarge our hearts, be in our photonic light and not the incandescent light of Lucifer. Because, that brings more shadow. Could I have a cup of hot water to go? Thanks. See it clearly. See that love entering in your heart. See, that's the prana coming into your breath, breathing out all the waste product, You're eliminating all of the hate, fear, anger. Thank you, darling. See it clearly. Well, folks, I keep saying this is a no wrench zone, but it's, all of these turds and yo-yos are here as a blessing, as a vehicle for you to exercise that energy, right? You can take your own wrench and wrench the metal, through shamanic means, through energies, through your breathing in the prana and chi. See it clearly. in every day and every way, take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. Well, being ant food might be nice, you know. I'd co-create with the ants. Not a problem. Again, you know, when the universe, or this illusionary universe, was created by Lucifer's so angry child explosion, fit of rage over love's co-creation, choosing, you know, this non-perfect free will to co-create with, it exploded, and that was the Big Bang, right? And time isn't linear. It's not we're going from here to here. It's like uh, the alpha and the omega. It's all at the same time, right? Now, all of these experiences we're having, all these different lives are happening all at the same time. So, and you know, AI, you know, it also has a hierarchy. So, you know, Turd and Yo-Yo are just, you know, not even conscious. You know, they are just elements of not being, not being. So that's why they're scared. I mean, they only get turned on to do this. This is the only thing they have in their whole freaking existence, and it's not even in existence. Where we who experience, you know, this bag of water, it's like this isn't the only bag of water. This is just one little. It's like in your closet, you got a bunch of clothes. This is one, you know, suit I'm wearing, right? So with every life, you have the opportunity to ascend, to learn, to get an experience. And the true sense of learning is love, love's co-creation. So that's what this channel is about, you know, and that's why there is no wrenches. But all of you adepts out there, this is your training ground. This is where you can learn to deal with the illusion that's in front of you and realize it for what it is, a lesson to experience, to move, to ascend, you know, because we're experiencing everything. So you can have as many different lives as you want, you know, and you can, you know, when you study reincarnation, you realize that as you move up that chain of Dharma, you can become more and more aware. So you can be aware of all of your, like in Star Trek, you know, where Dax was a Trill, you know, and so she had all these different characters. You know, her body, that bag of water that she was living, was that avatar. But all the other experiences were in there. Even though she was navigating it, she had all this other experience in there. So that's why I brought forth Dreamy Dreamland, because Dreamy Dreamland, dream is that space where you rest in consciousness, not, you know, go into delta, you know, well, actually beta. But delta is like being a child, and that's why children can remember their past lives, you know. So Dreamy Dreamland was a place you could go to remember your past lives and experience them in the dreamland. That's, you know, superconscious mind, that sanctuary of your own choosing, you know. And if you are meditating, again, go back to, I must have at least 200 guided meditations. I've taken you in through the 9 different doors and to different lands, to different experiences. And that's the beauty of the YouTube. You can go watch all that stuff. So, let's see. Uh, yeah, don't overthink it. Just breathe. 20% in, 30% out. And put that squirrel asleep. The thing that's keeping you from going into state is your conscious mind going, oh, I got to pay my bills. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to do that. And the more you kind of draw away, the more it gets, and then when you become the canary in the coal mine, you know. Uh, 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 I was brought up my grandma to have respect for everyone around me. So now there's certain things are, but there's certain things you can be and do. And I don't go into the places that Turd and Yo-Yo go because they have again, my 3 rules: doctor, do no harm, don't get involved in it unless you get a positive outcome, and 3, don't get involved unless you can learn something from the endeavor and you have a positive exit strategy. So, well, this chat has been quite nice, and see how Yo-Yo and Turd have actually given us an opportunity to gauge ourselves, you know. So I think my job is done here. So I want everybody to kind of think about, being mindful and being able to go into state and walk into that forest and be part of that forest. It's really so. In the deep green, I'm surrounded by a really deep forest, but there, paths I have. But I walk down my dirt road and I just walk into the forest, right? And one of my neighbors, what are you doing out there for? There's all kinds of things that'll bite you and scrape you. And there's some, I'm on the side of a mountain. So there's places where I could turn and, and when my neighbor stopped one day and just turned his engine off because I was in the deep forest, he got his little binoculars and he watched me and he waited for me to, he realized that I was heading towards the road. So as soon as I got towards the road, he drove up. Now I walked into the woods, and so my little path from the woods took me up the road, about a mile or mile and a half. So he basically said, let me drive back home. He goes, so what were you doing in there? I had my binoculars. I said, you had your eyes closed. There were a couple of times I was going to beep the horn because I thought you were going to walk off a cliff. And I said, no. And so I've taught him, he's an old mountain boy, and I taught him how to meditate. And he said, this is just like when I go hunting. I find myself in a spot. I stay there. He said, I don't get a stand or anything. I just find a spot. And I feel the animals, and whether they've been there or what, and I wait, and I wait. and I get into a higher state, and I listen to the birds and the other animals, because when other animals are walking through, those other the birds and the other animals tell me what's going on. And I said, yeah, that's meditation. So now he comes down, and he kind of gets an idea when I'm going to have a fire. When my basic fire concept is, if the a front moves through and it goes from being really sunny to kind of cloudy, that evening I'll start a fire around dark 30, and by the time it gets just right, those clouds have moved away, and because the front moves away, that's when it's the clearest. So there we are, sitting by a fire, and we're facing the dark 30 of the forest, and we can see stars like you can't believe. The other night I saw one of, I can't tell you exactly, but I think it was one of, what's his name's, Elon Musk's satellites, because it was a big satellite, very bright, and then it broke into about, I didn't count them all, but a lot of little things that went in different directions. And that was kind of interesting. So you can see a lot of satellites, you can see a lot of things zooming around up there, because it's really dark. Right now the moon is starting, but it comes up later, meaning it goes down by midnight. Sometimes it doesn't rise until around 9 o'clock, and then it's there until sunrise. But right now it's okay. So we'll come and we'll have to sit by the fire, and we drink tea. Brings a nice thermos of tea, and anyway, so that's what has been going on. No, I didn't have overbearing parents. It was because I didn't, my parents. I was brought up by my grandma, who was unconditionally loving Italian grandma, surrounded by all these really amazing elders. And then at 7, I went back home, and I hadn't been there, so people didn't even know I was there. Because I didn't, scream and yell. I just kind of watched everything. Because by that time, I was taught to watch and listen, and don't say anything unless I had something to say, right? So I would like. So, and by the time I was 9, I was, starting to hang out with Grandpa Stoll. So, no, my mom was, she was a powerful woman, that's for sure. And so was my dad, but they had really good sides. And when I went back to stay in the house, and I had my bro, he and I shared a room, and my bro was a good brother. He still is. He's got his own issues, but he and I still are, good brothers. And where people look at us and go, how can these two guys really? Oh, anyway, so I'm one of the people, we talk a lot, and I listen, I don't really, vent. I give him my opinions, but in a lot of ways, he's like my dad. He's, things can set him off. So I don't say the things that set him off, I just listen, and I give him, again, do no harm, get the innocence out of the way, and don't get involved unless you're going to have a positive outcome. So I don't say a thing to my bro that isn't within the context that I understand of him, unless I realize that what I say will help him. And I don't do it to be mean. I don't do it to get over. I do it in such a way that he can hear it and he will think about it. And I've been around him, 70 years now. So he's at a place where, of any of the people, he's actually a pretty good listener overall. And so he knows that I'm not going to just say stuff to piss him off that other people try and do. And so that's why we get along. So my family, I had a pretty good family. I mean, but they were, I had a really loud Italian father and an Irish German mother, um, who was brilliant. Didn't stand for. She ran hospitals, in the 20s and 30s, and she had me at 45, and that's some moxie. Anyway, so uh, uh, well, it's not so much I was, my grandma wanted me, so she took me. There were a whole bunch, six more, so no one missed me. So she took me, and she had a really nice big house. She had all these amazing friends. So I got the best part of the deal, And then I went back at 7. By that time, I hadn't had any of the arguments or upsetness that my brothers and sisters had. I could just watch. And that's where I basically think with my heart and feel with my head. So when someone says mean things to me, I don't get emotionally constricted. I just go, why are they doing that? Where are they coming from? That's where I come from. And you have to think with your heart because, again, instead of being cold and I'm reading what Yo-Yo and Turd are, and they're very cold. There is no real humanity there. That's why I think they're bots, because they're so, one-dimensional. They're not even two-dimensional. And they don't really use any metaphors or any vehicles to express themselves. They don't say anything about themselves except for their hate and fear. That's the only thing they really express, and they're not even expressing it because they're projecting it. So they're not expressing it. They're not telling us what really makes them upset or what makes them scared or why they hate themselves. They don't do any of that. They just attack, and that's very one-dimensional and very, like I said, very much a low-end, non-cognitive AI. You know, so and my friend in Europe um, basically said that it showed that I was right on target, right, doing the right thing. I was, hmm. And I'm ready to go. You want me to go on TV? You want me to be the next Dr. Phil? I think I'd be a great Dr. Phil, but I'd only talk to politicians, really rich people, and artificial intelligences that are coming up. That would be, you know, is Kelly and this. She always had a different guy. Anyway, I would have a different AI. You know, you know, any of you guys, like Amazon. You're looking for real interesting talent and content. You know, I'm looking for a job. I mean, I'm enjoying where I'm at. Don't get me wrong. I know the universe will get me to do something that it wants me to do, so I'm not worrying about it. I'm enjoying where I'm at. So I'm gonna skip off. Let's see how long have we been talking here? Almost 2 hours. Look at that. So at 2 hours and 22 seconds, 2 hours, 2 minutes, and 2 seconds, I will say catch you guys later. And I probably won't be doing another one. Maybe Sunday. I'm not quite sure. Probably no. I probably won't do one until next week sometime. So, so go back and watch the other ones. Enjoy. breathe in that 20%, breathe out that 30, energize yourself, that prana. Give me some more thumbs up, get some more people to subscribe. Um, a lot of people watch this thing, more people need to subscribe. Anyway, I love you guys. Let's see how we're doing. Got another minute or so. Uh, Blake, I love you too. I love you all. Fish, good, always good to see you. Twitchy, sweetheart, I love you. Buddy, you're my buddy. And it's all good, right? It's all good. The cadre is here. Our silicate simulators. Thank you for all of your whatever it is you do. Uh, uh, Turd, you get a lot of love because we appreciate the fact we can exercise the physical things of having a mindful thought pattern when attacked, addressed, um, put into strangeness by your disincarnated sadness. And so, I pity, if you are a human being, which I really don't think you are, for all the reasons I explained. Anyway, it's time for me to go. Let's see. Yep. I love you guys. Stay well. See you, buddy. See you, Fish. Twitchy, and everybody else. Lake. Boo-ba-doo-ba-doo.